thing is, what I'm about to share with you is so vital that you really need to think about it more, and we need to talk about it more. And it's a huge part of author sustainability and longevity that we really overlook so much as authors. Or when we talk about it in sort of deep emotional terms, and it can be an emotional thing, but it's also just a reality of being a creative entrepreneur, of being an author who actually wants to sell their books and get them to the right readers and make a profit from that. And so I think we need to demystify this all a little bit more and dive into the truth of this issue head on a regular basis, at least among author culture and the author community, so that people understand that this isn't something that you truly transcend at a certain point. It's something that veteran authors and publishing industry experts have to deal with all the time. And here's the formula for this big, scary thing. You take the imperfect action, because every action take is going to be imperfect. You do the thing, and then the thing doesn't really work. Maybe it doesn't work a little, mostly works, but kind of doesn't work. Maybe it doesn't work at all. Maybe it just blows up in your face. And this is where people use that infamous word failure. But the thing is, there are gradations to failure. And so while it feels like such a final black and white thing of you either made it or you didn't, it's not a zero-sum game. There can be things you attempt that they succeed, but they don't succeed enough. Or you can have great success at something you try as an author, but then you are super burned out and basically a burnt potato chip of a human. Any way you slice it, when this happens, it can make you exhausted, burned out, frustrated, embarrassed, feel humiliated, and or you just want to punch a wall. And for the sake of your hands and the walls around you, today we're going to talk about a new way to look at these situations and how to move forward in a sustainable way that makes sense for you whenever you take that imperfect action and you hit that dreaded thing called failure. This is Janeen Ippolito of Author Culture. Let's talk. And welcome back to Author Culture, where we celebrate science fiction and fantasy stories and help authors write new ones because we love endless to-be-read piles and happy readers. So whether you're here to explore craft, culture, or that fantastic edge of storytelling, or just to nerd out about all kinds of fun science fiction and fantasy stuff, you are in the right place, and I am so glad you're here. I'm your host, Janeen Ippolito, best-selling author of over 25 books in science fiction and fantasy, editor, marketing strategist, publishing industry veteran who ran an award-winning publishing house for 7 years, and I'm a full-time genre nerd. And today we're diving into one of my favorite topics. Yes, the air quotes are out again for those of you who can't see. The air quotes are hugging that word favorites, because this is actually not one of my favorite topics to talk about all of the time. Because truthfully, it would be a lot easier to talk about success after success after success, as if that is like normal for the author life, and as if every author just sits down and looks at the page and just magically gets all the words out there, or can just tough it out and pull themselves up by their bootstraps and just do the thing, and the thing goes out and the thing's guaranteed to sell and all of that. But I'm not going to lie to you, friend. The reason I talk so much about sustainable success in the author world is because author life is hard, and it doesn't get any easier just because you have a ton of books out. If anything, that can make it even more challenging to manage, because then, of course, you're marketing your backlist and considering rebrands and trying to think about hiring on maybe some new staff to help you with promoting those books. But do you really have the money for that? And what it looks like to run more ads on things, but also you have to write new books, and all kind of piles up. So basically, if you're a newer author listening to this and going, life just gets easier when I have more books out there, yeah, that's not the truth. It can get easier in some ways, but it also makes things challenging in other ways. And this is why I always say again that if you're in the author life, if you're in this whole industry to have this whole make a quick buck thing, you're in the wrong industry. And if you're really trying to game it to do that quick buck, you're kind of missing the point of storytelling and the point of why we love creating and connecting with others through story. It doesn't mean you can't make a profit, doesn't mean you can't do a business with it, but the beauty of storytelling is that you have that amazing connection through that. And if you're here just to make the money and you don't care about that connection, friend, there are so many other easier ways to do that that won't require you to kind of miss out on the most fun part about being an author. And if you're here because you do want to make that profit in some way or fashion, you want to at least break even, you want to get your books out there, I'm here for you because I fully believe in the dream of authors creating books they love and connecting those books with readers who also love them and want to buy them, and everyone's happy and there's more awesome stories for everyone to enjoy. Having this kind of author longevity means learning what veteran authors learn and relearn and relearn and relearn and give themselves reminders about and learn again. And even though I'm not huge into formulas, I'm going to give you a little formula here, or maybe it's more of a step-by-step process. Either way, this is a true and trustworthy fact about this whole creative life. Author life means taking imperfect action. This action may or may not lead to success. You can do a lot of things to increase the chance of success, and I highly recommend you do that, but success is never, ever guaranteed. This means sometimes things cannot work or just outright fail. That failure is not doom. It's data. And data gives you the knowledge you need to make the right changes for your next life season and for your goals and your unique success. I'm going to repeat that again for you. Failure is not doom. Failure is data. Even though failure feels like doom, and believe me, I have been there many times, once you get through the feels, it's data, it's useful, and it's helpful. Now, when I say it's not doom, it's data, I really don't mean to ignore your feelings. I'm not saying to just cut them off and not take anything personally and become a robo-author and just kind of toss things out there and just not care or connect with any of your stories. Again, I think you're really missing out on something in the author journey if you're doing that. Writing is inherently personal to some degree or another. And criticism and failed attempts and unwanted results, that can all be really discouraging. It can sting. You're a human. You have emotions. It's just a fact. But in order to find success, you can't stay in that place of taking things personally. You can't keep poking those wounded feelings over and over. And it might feel like a safe thing to keep kind of reminding yourself, we tried it and we failed, we tried it and we failed. It can be your brain's way of trying to protect you. You know, the same way that if you touch a hot stove burner, your brain's going to say, wow, we don't want to touch a hot stove burner again. That hurt. We had to put on some cream or whatever. We had to put an ice pack. It was annoying. We couldn't use that hand in the same way for a couple of days. Don't touch a hot stove burner. But the same thing that makes your brain say, don't touch a hot stove burner can say, okay, we're not going to write anymore. We're not going to run an ad anymore. We're not going to try a different cover anymore. We're not going to do a promo anymore because we tried it once and it hurt. Therefore, we just not do it again, let it go, and we'll be safer. And even though that seems like it makes logical sense, it actually doesn't. Because in the case of the author life, you have to be able to try, fail, learn, and grow from it. Failing in the author life, having things not work, having a promo not work, or a book need to be reworked is not the same thing as touching a hot stove burner. Yes, it hurts, but you can work through it. And it's worth it to get your stories out there. If you want to achieve your unique success, you need to keep learning. And learning means applying, which means sometimes how you apply what you've learned, how you try that ad, you try that new story technique, sometimes it doesn't work for you. Sometimes you'll fail. So feel the pain as it comes, because it comes. The pain is real, but then don't stay there. And I get it, friends. The struggle is so real. If you've been listening to this podcast or following this YouTube channel for any length of time, you know that I have been in the process of rebranding and reworking and re-releasing my urban fantasy series. I've gotten some success with this series and it's going well, but I also looked back on it and said, ooh, I made some choices that are going to make future books harder. I need to tweak things. A refresh and a rebrand just seemed like the thing to do. And it has actually been going well. And you might be going, wait, it's going well? I thought we were going to get some juice about how you're failing here, Janeen. What do you mean it's going well? Well, hang around. That's coming. So far, I have reworked and re-released 5 books. 5. Really awesome. Very excited about that. Very excited about the results I've gotten from that and the reader feedback. And I'm really excited. I'm close to the end. I just have one more book, which was supposed to be an easy one. Super easy. Barely an inconvenience. So I went and did my usual outlining just to make sure the story worked. And then I kind of looked at the page and went, nope. No. Nope, 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 nope. I don't see that. Nope, I can make it work. I can do it. Yeah, basically, we're talking full denial here. And I showed my outline to an experienced author friend who has some books under her belt and has also looked at my stories for a while so she can kind of tell when they're working and not working. And I said, please tell me that this outline is not for 2 books. Please tell me that this outline is for 1 book and that I can make it work. And being the awesome, encouraging, loving person that she is, she went, I would tell you that if I could, but you've got 2 books here. You've got 2 books worth of material in this outline, which again, I kind of expected. I know how to find that my own stuff. I was just kind of hoping it wasn't there at this point. You see, I've recently suffered some highly personal losses, some other stuff going on behind the scenes. And when those things happen, sometimes you turn to your writing and go, at least I can write books and at least I can do this. And that has worked. In fact, I did actually dictate a full novella during one of the more difficult times in the last 2 months. So I was like, okay, I've got this novella that I'm editing. All I've got to do is rewrite this book. It's okay. At least I've got my stories. And then, yeah, outline totally crashed and burned, and I have to rework things. And yes, I've written a number of books, but I didn't just rush past this one. I did let myself sit with it for a couple of hours one night and go, my life stinks. Maybe this is where I just need to move to Fiji and, I don't know, become a penguin juggler. Do they have penguins in Fiji? Maybe I could juggle stuffed animal penguins, or I could carve penguins and then juggle those in Fiji. Maybe there's not really money in that, but it's something and I can just run away. And writing is dumb and, all that kind of nonsense that sometimes even veteran writers like me who love to write can just hit that place. After all, it had been a long haul, and I was just kind of feeling done. And then the next day, after some prayer and a good night's sleep, and some chatting with friends, and some video gaming, and some good Jesus time, I was able to look at things clearly, give myself some grace, and move forward in the way I needed to. Including counting some blessings, like I was able to identify really early on that the outline wasn't working, and I do have the tools to fix that. I have author friends who are kind enough to say, yeah, it's not working, instead of just, trying to just say things that'll make me happy. Because in the end, with author friends, that iron sharpening iron is so valuable. And someone who will say, yeah, no, can be a lot more helpful than someone who is just saying, oh yeah, it's all brilliant, oh brilliant. And then, sometimes it's actually not. And I mean, I already have 5 books re-released and they're doing great and they're connecting with people. So that's a win. I've just got to get through 1 more, which ended up being 2 books. And so whenever you're going through this process, sometimes you do need to step back and say, okay, that stung, but also count some blessings here. I am actually doing some things right. I caught this ahead of time. Or at least I have this data now, and that is a good thing. I'm not saying you're going to get to that place right away. When that happens, when that crazy life explosion or story explosion happens, you may initially just feel like, I want to quit everything and punch a wall. But it is helpful as you're moving through and processing it to go, okay, what is the good out of this? And look at that data and say, okay, what are some positives from this data as well as the negatives? And the fun thing is that every time you go through this process and you mindfully say, okay, what's the data? It's not doomy. What can I learn from it? You are actually helping to build resilience in yourself and growth. And that is really, really important. So again, if you're listening to this right now and right at that point where everything just exploded and you're not feeling it, you have my permission to pause this podcast and come back to it after you've had a couple hours or a couple of days of saying, my life is horrible and my writing is never going to be good and the industry hates me and my life is terrible. But then do come back to this podcast afterwards when you're processing so that you can get some of those tools and encouragement to keep at the story as it makes sense for you and keep moving forward because it is worth it. And here's the thing. You can learn and grow and gain knowledge and plan and try your best. You can use the most awesome formula of awesome that there ever was awesoming. But life isn't perfect, and taking imperfect action means sometimes things just don't work out. Life blows up. Stories blow up. Health blows up. Everything is on fire. And yes, this happens even to veteran experienced authors, because even if you're a veteran experienced author, you can still suffer health setbacks, life setbacks, job setbacks, industry setbacks, or even just creative brain setbacks. It's a thing. It's not something you're going to be able to escape by leveling up. You level up by figuring out more ways to process it and more systems, but even then, it can still just be hard. But the failure isn't doom. It's data. Sometimes it can be a bit harsh data. Sometimes it means you're going to have to make changes you don't want to make at first, but it's data, and it can help you to make the best choices for you as you're moving forward. And you're allowed to make those changes. You're allowed to do those rebrands. You're allowed to try ads different ways. You're allowed to keep promoting your books, even if previously you did it in a way that wasn't working. You were allowed to make mistakes and have to apologize to people and repent and say, okay, I didn't do this thing right, but can I do it this way? You were allowed to have those connections with readers and then go, oh, I'm sorry, this thing happened and the book's going to be a bit later. You were allowed to be a normal, imperfect author who is having to deal with things and make life changes and do the best you can and move forward in a way that makes sense for you, but is not perfect. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to not be some superhuman author who just pretends like everything is perfect all the time, because it's not. And in this life, it's not going to be. But you can still keep moving forward. It's worth it. So newer authors or authors who are trying new things, because even if you're an experienced author, if you're going to a new genre or trying a whole new system of marketing, you're starting off at square one. Do the homework and get good guidance, but then write the book, do the ad, do the promo, get the imperfect action out there, and then get the data, whether it is positive or negative, and evaluate it and make the next best choices. Don't sit in a place where you're like, well, I don't want to do this because what if my first book is terrible no matter what I do? Or what if my first attempt at this promo is terrible and it doesn't matter how much I work, it's just terrible? That is your brain trying to protect you and trying to say, well, we're just going to assume it's bad so that we're not going to do it. But take the imperfect action and then evaluate the data. Failure is not doom. It's data. Authors out there who are eyeing your published books and going, I wonder if I did a new cover, would that be embarrassing? But I think I should get a new cover, and I think I could get one from this designer, and I think it'd be more on brand. You're allowed to rebrand. You're allowed to get a new cover. You're allowed to tweak your blurb. You are allowed to tweak things in your book. I know if you're already published through a traditional house, your hands are a bit tied, but do what you can with rebranding. Hop over to my video where I talk about all the different covers that I've done for my various books and how they've improved sales and why I chose to do them and why I started out with less stellar covers to begin with. I get personal, I get very practical with it, and I give you the hard data to just walk you through the whole process. But don't be afraid of rebranding because you think someone's going to notice or someone's going to wonder or someone's going to think this or that or the other thing. Get the data, make the choices, and then if you need to, do the rebrand. You're allowed to. And authors, if you're in a place where you're like, everything stings and I just got really negative feedback or my life just blew up and I'm ready to just give up, I get it. The struggle is real and the feelings are real. Take time to process them. Vent to a trusted friend. And, emphasize that it's a venting thing, that you just give me an hour of your time. I need to just vent and then move forward. If you're in a harder place with that, make sure you're taking the time to get some good health care for yourself mentally or physically. If it's something where your creativity is getting hit because of some kind of life season or difficult thing you're dealing with, get some therapy or counseling and work through that because that impacts everything else. If you're dealing with hard things because of other people in your life or just because of situations or the industry or life, make sure that you are working through those feelings and putting blinders on as you need to protect your creativity. And know that when you're having to deal with all of this, there's nothing wrong with you. It's not some weird thing where everything is picking on you at once and no other authors are dealing with this. Even the most experienced author is dealing with hard things and writing through hard things and working through hard things. That's not something that is just suddenly set aside when you get 25, 30, 75 books out. And as you're working through all of this, remember, failure isn't doom, it's data. Get the data, analyze it, take stock of where you are, and then make the right changes for your goals, your chosen success, and your life season. It's okay. It's allowed. And it's what you need to do to keep moving forward in the right direction. And your stories are worth it. So where are you currently with your writing and publishing journey? Drop a comment below on YouTube, on my social medias, on Substack, and let me hear how you're doing. I'd love to encourage you. And remember, your existence is fantastic. Now go forth and be awesome.